Hello, I'm Lothika Pai, Chief Small Business Officer with the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. For this episode of Behind the Business License, we are at Windy City Mushroom, located at 4100 West 76th Street in the West Lawn community. West Lawn is one of Chicago's 77 community areas located on the south side of the city in the 18th Ward. It is considered to be a melting pot of sorts due to its diversity in the various ethnicities that are represented in the community. It has a small town atmosphere in a big city. West Lawn is home to many Polish American, Irish Americans, Mexican Americans, and other people of Latin American and Eastern European origin. Windy City Mushrooms, if you look at their webpage, it says, taking fungitarian far beyond just adding mushrooms to your diet, we've created a lifestyle centered around our mission to unite people through the joy of eating healthy, sustainable, and irresistibly delicious mushrooms. That is incredible. So joining me today is Guy Furman and Scott Detterman, who are owners of Windy City Mushroom Farms, and Jim Longino, Director of Industrial Development, Greater Southwest Development Corporation. This series showcases our city's neighborhood business development centers, also known as NBDCs, with the goal of future and current business owners and entrepreneurs learning the value of NBDC resources. So let's get to it. Windy City Mushrooms was founded in 2020, or was it 2019 was when you
19.
founded just before the pandemic, right? That was very
right.
brave. So, please tell us about your journey to actually starting this organization. And then also you mentioned that you had pivoted from a previous business that you had. So tell us about your journey.
Yeah, officially the company LLC name is Chicago Wet Storage because we had been previously involved with shellfish storage. It's called live storage or wet storage, where you bring these mussels in from essentially their colder climates of New England, put them back in the water, and then redistribute them. But they've regained at that point their shelf life. Very tough business to make profitable, and so we'd been through a lot of the permitting for everything. We were already set up as a business, and we had this space that was food grade. And I tried to take another shot at something before we closed the doors on that business. And that ended up being mushrooms, and that ended up being Windy City Mushroom. So we were able to jump in, and I told you this story a little bit ago, but when we sold our first mushroom, it was very clear we'd been in the wrong business the whole time. People were more likely to pay a lot more money for a better mushroom than they were a better mussel. So that kind of began the path. As I said, that was right before the pandemic. Had all this happened during the pandemic, I don't think it would have happened. But at least we had enough going for us in a few months to think there was a viable business there. And then we struggled for the next year in 2020. Finally got some consistency in 2021. And that got us rolling and showing that there was really a market for this product out there, and got the technology. We've always been tinkering with how to grow them better, but that finally got us into this location. We were able to get a larger loan and install this place, and now we're in a 50,000 square foot facility down here inside of a larger 1 million square foot huge building here, and we're just hoping to continue to grow from there on.
Thank you so much, Guy. First of all, you walked us through your facility, and it's really impressive. It takes a lot of grit, perseverance, and determination to make a small business grow, scale, and get it to the level where you have gotten Windy City Mushrooms to. So what were the clear, I would say, points in the growth of your organization that have determined the future trajectory? You mentioned recently about your heavy focus on wholesale and new avenues opening up for you. It's not easy to scale. So if you could share that story with our audience, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, about 2.5 years ago, we had the location move, which just got us into a position where we could grow much larger. That was a much smaller location. And it also gave us the chance to design the facility around this technology and what we were doing, because previously that building had been picked for a different business, so it didn't quite have all the attributes that we needed it to. That was one big move. And then we grew the sales, but it was still tough being in the restaurant industry, trying to grow at the scale we needed to cover the overhead here. The next big break was probably when we got into Whole Foods, white labeled under Smallhold. But that was really a major step in our per month revenue, as well as just getting the product out there to a larger number of people. And that's what we've been trying to do, is that it can take a year to get into a lot of these retailers. But retail's been driving the growth so far. And now kind of following our fresh mushroom sales has also been our cooked product, which you can kind of see right there. We're now selling our cooked product called Fungitarian in a pouch in retailers, and now available in Fresh Time. And we're going to try and get it in Whole Foods eventually also, but it's a long process. And also Peach Fresh and Sunset Foods.
Congratulations. That's quite the journey. So Scott, as this business was growing, what type of city resources has the, Windy City Mushrooms been able to tap into?
So working with Southwest Development Group, we've been able to get resources to improve the safety of our facilities through, it's like a report that they give you. So they do a full audit of your facility, show you where the pitfalls are, some things you may or may not know. But then also Jim's been great here working with finding kind of different lending options. For businesses like this, where we're very asset heavy, most of our stuff doesn't qualify to normal lenders. So he was able to find one called Pursuit Lending that's a CDFI that basically looks at these things differently. They're designed with a mission-driven purpose as opposed to your traditional typical banks. And then also we're kind of in the beginning phases of working together to get our product the fungitarian product into schools. So we have had some success within it, but how do we keep going? How do we keep developing it? So Jim's been able to connect us with that, and we have a lot more business ahead of us in that area.
That's great to hear. I'm glad you were able to help them with access to capital. It often takes money to make money. And CDFIs are such invaluable resources for small business owners to provide them with this much needed capital to help with their capital expenditure, especially with a business like yours, which has very heavy CapEx needs. Mm-hmm. So Jim, tell us a little bit more about the work that you do with the NBDC. I know you have multiple grants from the city, you're very entrenched in the neighborhood. How do you work with business owners?
Well, thank you. I'm very privileged and happy to be actually back in my old neighborhood where I grew up, in the West Lawn neighborhood. Greater Southwest Development Corporation has been here for 50 years, and we, as you mentioned, we do have a number of business advisory programs that we utilize. One being the capital program, one being the industry specialist program, which goes into my industrial program, which is to try to help businesses just like Guy and Scott to come in and be able to grow their business and again have good workforce positions that help our residents and help businesses like them. So our various programs, the capital program through NBDC, our generalist program, we have our CBC, which is Community Business Center, which is helping in licensing, and we also have a peer-to-peer group where we help train other non-for-profits.
That's such a full suite of help that you provide to small business owners, and we're extremely appreciative of the work that you do as the city's boots on the ground in this specific neighborhood. So thank you. Guy, when I walk through the facility, there's something really interesting about your focus on sustainability. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And also, how many employees do you have? Because small businesses are the largest employer in the city of Chicago. They contribute so much to our tax revenue. They build communities. They empower people living in the neighborhoods. So talk a little bit more about that.
Well, when we first grew the first mushrooms, it was me and one other guy. That was it. But now I believe it's like 15 to 17 people. A couple of people have been part-time in that list. And so that's how large we've grown to. And in terms of sustainability, we're doing everything we can. It's not always viable. I mean, it's hard to not use natural gas to sterilize your things with. You got to use some heat source. But we get our two primary production ingredients are soy hull and hardwood pellets, both of which are they're waste products from other industries, mainly the lumber industry and the soybean industry. It's the outside of the soybean is the soy hull. So both of those are basically considered waste products that we turn into high quality protein in the forms of gourmet mushrooms. We then recycle the leftover substrate inside of the bags. We get what's called two flushes or two fruitings, where the mushrooms will pop out twice, and then the yield gets lower and lower, so you can't just use that bag forever. It gets smaller. Literally is transferring mass from the mushroom bag right there into the mushrooms, and so it runs out. So when we do that, we give that to a soil company, which you found for us.
It's a company called Midwest Trading. So they do mulch for a variety of city businesses throughout the area. So when you put in compost on your yard, they're one of the suppliers of that. But they take our spent mushroom substrate, they send it and mix it in with other compost, and then they actually package it and sell it back into stores such as Home Depot as what they call mushroom compost, which is then used to actually grow for home gardeners or for other people to grow produce at home, because the mushrooms, the mycelium, the roots of it, actually help boost crop yields for people who are farming or at least gardening.
Because they're the best decomposers out there. So they're breaking down the wood and everything else in the soil and making the nutrients available for your plants.
That's really cool. Why West Lawn? You could have started this business, grown it anywhere in Chicago. Why this community?
So, I looked at all across the city. And I think that most of the places where you're going to find space this large were probably going to be communities that would have worked for what we were looking for. But in specifically, this location was perfect for us because this old World War II building that we're in, this 1943 concrete structure, is perfect for mushroom growing. It's really, they've got a 12-inch thick concrete roof, which you just don't find very often, but it's got a lot of temperature stability. So structurally, and it was kind of designed without the frills of modern day buildings, which were going to be more expensive for us. So it was really a chance to take industrial space and repurpose it for a new modern business, since this was making engines during World War II. But the community worked out perfectly for us also. It's got a wide availability, as you said, it's a very diverse area. It comes with diverse skill sets. And there's been never any issues with having that community around us be valuable for the company as well to grow it.
So Jim, this next question is for you. We know that small businesses are so essential to vibrancy in our neighborhoods and in our communities. How do you identify businesses in this very robust commercial corridor?
Well, this is one of the industrial corridors of the city of Chicago. There's 26 of them, and so we have about 3 of those in our service area. And so when we're looking at new move-ins or activities, a lot of that is on two folds. First, it's knowing the community and knowing the various businesses here, but also looking at new business licenses that might be coming across our desk through research that we do, and quite frankly, just going out and talking to the community, having relationships with the various businesses in this area, hearing that there's somebody that might be moving in, or driving down one of the industrial corridors one day and saying, oh, well, that's a new business. So yeah, that's pretty much how we do it. And the thing is that it is vital, as you said, to an economy. These jobs and these manufacturers are engines that we saw during the COVID, seeing how essential being able to produce product in the United States and then in this community. This was was always an industrial area or manufacturing area for good jobs that led to people getting a good lifestyle from that. And we really want to encourage that, especially when you look at the fact that people are in walking distance to here. Yeah. Cuts down on the pollution, and cuts down the wear and tear. It allows people to actually come back into the community and see their families at 5 o'clock or 5:30 at night when the job is done. They're not commuting and adding to more stress and congestion. So always looking to be able to help businesses succeed in our area, especially companies like Windy City Mushroom.
So Guy and Scott, I truly believe that entrepreneurship is such an amazing way for small business owners to build economic self-sustainability, but it is not without its challenges. So can you talk about a time when you were faced with a challenge and how maybe resources in your community helped you overcome them?
Yeah, we were kind of laughing about this because there's a very long list of challenges. I would have to say, honestly, anyone that thinks this was easy, we probably almost went bankrupt 6 times in the last 18 months alone. Money has been a constant challenge. One thing we discussed too is that sometimes the sales cycle, the demand is there, but actually getting into a customer can take long, and you're waiting on them to get paperwork done, and you're burning money every month doing that. So, really, we did not go into this with enough money, and we were constantly searching for it. So that always helps when you can find access to capital with grants or better lending options. And unfortunately, too, those kind of come with every step of being closer to being successful. It opens up new opportunities for you because you're looking a little bit more financially stable. So it was a constantly bootstrap it and get a little further, and then try and improve your situation at that point and do it again and again and again. So a lot of iterations of that. Of course, there was technical problems, but that's just life. Always personnel problems, but that's just life. We've had them all, but like I said, we're trying to navigate it, and any help that we can get is huge, because without that, there's just not a guidebook for this kind of stuff. You gotta take whatever resources you can get or whatever's made available to you.
That is so true. I think success, sometimes when people look from the outside, they don't see all the million steps that you've taken to climb the mountain.
Easy once everything's super smooth.
Yeah, exactly. They see the final success, you on top of Everest, but it takes a long time and a lot of steps to get there.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. So Jim, from your perspective, in an industrial corridor, what are some of the most useful and valuable resources that you provide as a CBC or as an NBDC in the city?
Well, there are numerous ones. The fact that working with companies like Guy and Scott's, we understand that where they're at in the business cycle, whether they're starting out and looking to agencies like ourselves to help them get licensed or help them flesh out their business plan or their strategies, or if they move up after they've done all that, then we move into capital, which is a killer. Everybody says they need money, but you could have the most successful business plan, and cash flow, just because it might be off by a couple of months, could be enough to cripple your agency. And when you get to a certain point where you're right at that cusp, everybody wants to get the brand new kid on the block, and they want to be able to help them. But that's all exciting, but then the work comes, and then you're actually building your business. And then you have that next stage where you're like, well, now what do we do? Because we're too big for being small, but we're too small for any lenders to look at us. So agencies like Greater Southwest and the great people that work there as business advisors, they are looking at businesses to give them the foundation. And through programs like NBDC, we're able to do that with no cost, which people are shocked when we tell them that. Why is it no cost? What's the catch? The catch is we want to have successful businesses in our community so they provide good jobs for our residents. And we also want to show how, especially in an area of our area, which is heavily Hispanic and other minorities, you don't know what you don't know. I come from this neighborhood, and when I was here, we had different ethnicities, but it's the same problem. How do you get a foothold? How do you have this great idea? How do you move up? And so what agencies like we do through the NBDC programs, we're able to help them through any step of the way and provide them those resources, like IMEC, which is the Illinois Manufacturing Education Center, which Guy and Scott referred to about engineering. So these are resources that are out there, but people don't know about that. So our role too is to make that match and to use our expertise and the teams to try to find out what it is that a business needs and how can we help you either meet somebody or provide that service.
That is great. Yeah, no, I think that is such invaluable resources and assistance that you provide at a very hyper-local level. And the city thanks you for that, because we couldn't do what we do without partners like you. So thank you.
Thank you.
When I think about the food equity ecosystem, the overall food ecosystem in Chicago, it's so important for us that we have urban agriculture that we promote, that we have grocery stores that are present, that are well stocked, that are present in communities, that we have a more holistic approach to the kinds of small businesses that prop up the food ecosystem in Chicago. So if you could think about where city resources could help you more, can you highlight maybe one or two things for us to take away from this?
I'll say one resource that we've found is, farms always have, let's say, some excess production. You have to have all the mushrooms to be ready whenever a restaurant or a grocery store wants to buy. And you have to be not just ready then, but a while before then. So we do try to donate our excess product to local organizations. So through the Greater Chicago Food Policy Initiative, we received grants that have facilitated some of our expansion, but also we do donate our excess food to local nonprofits that are taking that food and distributing it throughout the community. We also, and this is, I guess, more of our philosophy, is we want mushrooms to be at an affordable price. There's some other companies who treat it as a luxury only for the wealthy, but we want to get it to a price point where a lot more people can afford it. It's not only beneficial for them, but it also helps us to grow bigger, to provide for more people.
So, for both of you, Guy and Scott, what does having a City of Chicago business license mean to you?
Well, it wasn't. It's a big accomplishment on its own because you have to get everything in place. But I said we were lucky because this was not my first time in entrepreneurship, and the business stemmed from one that we had spent time and resources on establishing food safety plans and everything already. But it certainly is something that I know can be a difficult process for some people, and having achieved it is, means you've got your act together to a large degree. So I think it's a big deal.
I guess I look at it from a different lens. I actually discovered gourmet mushrooms through going to a steakhouse in Chicago, GT Prime, with friends, and kind of what led me down this rabbit hole. COVID helped, and COVID Hobbies helped with that. But to be able to say the restaurant industry is what got me into this, and now I can provide these mushrooms to a lot of the restaurants that I've always felt Chicago is an amazing city for food, and now we can participate in that. And not just to the Alineas of the world, by that matter, but to a lot of local restaurants here. Even throughout our exact community here, that's something that gives me a lot of pride in the work that we do, is taking those to more people so we all have a better food ecosystem here in Chicago.
Yeah. And on that too, we work with a group called Naturally Chicago, and they also cater to this same community of, a lot of it is consumer packaged good brands, so people trying to make products for shelves. But either way, there is a lot of it in Chicago. There's a lot of people trying to start food-based companies here. They refer to us as the Silicon Valley of food here in Chicago. It's like a lot of people don't even aware of what's going on in that industry, but there's been a lot of great success stories that we've had from Chicago too, in terms of brands that have made it, like RX Bar and other ones like that are now national brands that started with very humble beginnings right here in essentially in garages. It's the same Silicon Valley thing, but you don't tell people you made your granola bar in your garage, but it worked. It got them there. So there's a lot of that here, and that Chicago is the spot for that, I think, overall. So to your point of the community around it, this is the spot for food development.
I couldn't agree with you more, so thank you for sharing that with us. Jim, from where you sit, what does it mean to you to help a small business get a City of Chicago business license?
Oh, well, that's the best part, because what you have there is now you've actually executed that idea that sparked in somebody's garage or someone's kitchen, where now coming through an agency with our talented staff, who I speak very highly of, they're able to assess what a business needs and then get them to a point where they're now ready to execute, which means they're ready to open up, which means they're ready to make money, which means they're able to provide jobs, which means we have a brand new product like what we have here today. So that is exciting. We see a number of businesses that go through our programs and then be able to help them get their licenses and permits, and then just help them get to the next stage and to the next stage, to ultimately where we have new businesses. And I can mention name brands that everybody knows, but we have one of the best pizza places that came from California and 63rd Street. We have a candy company that used to be on 62nd Place in Pulaski, and now we have a great candy company that's the first African-American woman factory chocolate manufacturer in the country. The best story is you have an idea. We're trying to help you provide the foundation with resources like the City of Chicago so that we can then help you be successful, which then in turn makes our neighborhood successful, and people can enjoy being here and we're contributing. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Thank you so much, Scott and Guy. Really appreciate your time today. And thank you for sharing your story. I think It's very inspiring to hear stories like yours. You know, you started just before COVID. You went through a pivot at a very critical time, and then you've had so many ups and downs still landing these really big wholesale contracts. So we wish you success and really look forward to seeing how you're going to grow and, you know, become the fungitarian brand in the United States.
The fungitarian brand and the largest gourmet producer in the U.S. would be the goals.
That's the goal.
And we are right behind you. You know, you have amazing support services here with Jim and his team and the city of Chicago. Like, we're there to help. So we really appreciate everything that you're doing to help grow the community, to help develop this industrial corridor, contribute to it, create jobs, create wealth. You know, can't say thank you enough. As always, you can get more information by visiting our website at chicago.gov/BACP and watching this episode on youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. Our guests will always have valuable information to share, so please join us next time on Behind the Business License.